Okay, so that's what I would say. So let's see what they say here. The pH level starts at 6.5, then decreases rapidly for 24 minutes. For the remainder of the hour, the pH level gradually increases back towards 6.5. Okay, but let's read the other two anyway. The pH level starts at 24. Of course not. The pH level starts at 4.6. Of course not. Goodbye. Okay, here's the last problem. What are we trying to determine here? What is this? What are we solving for? Or what are we solving? So this is a rational inequality. How many factors does it have? Yes, 1, 2, 3. So if you're using the table that I showed you, then we will have x, because that x is the variable in the problem. We will have x plus 7 as the first factor. We will have x minus 9 as the second factor. We will have x plus 5 as the last factor. And what will be the last row? The whole thing. So it's x plus 7 multiplied by x minus 9 and divided by x plus 5. Now I have to identify the numbers that go in the table. Only 3 numbers go in the table. 1 number for each factor, because they are linear factors. So in the correct order, so what will be the number that needs, or the 0 of x plus 7? Let's put them on the side. What will be the number for x minus 9? And what will be the number for this? Good. Now carefully put them in the correct ascending order. First one. Perfect. Next one. Perfect. And the last one, 9. Be very careful, because if we mess up those numbers at the top, we mess up the answer. Okay, very good. So x plus 7 has a 0 somewhere. Where? Of course. X minus 9 has to have a 0 somewhere. And of course, now we have to, before we establish the sign for each factor, we have to identify what happens to the ratio. And remember, when the denominator is 0, the expression is undefined. When the numerator of a fraction is 0, the fraction itself is 0. Okay, so what happens at x plus 7? In other words, at negative 7 to this? Perfect. What happens on the negative 5? Or at negative 5? Very good. And what happens at 9? Perfect. So now let's establish the signs. Luckily for us, they're all linear functions with a positive slope. I don't have to think. What is the sequence of signs for something like that? That's it. Thank you very much. For each subinterval, I basically count the negatives, nothing else. In the first subinterval, I am multiplying or dividing. It doesn't matter. The process is the same. It gives me the same answer. I divide or multiply 3 negatives. In the next one, I multiply or divide 2 negatives. In the next one, I have 1 negative. And in the last one, I have no negatives. Only now, I look here, and I ask myself, what is less than or equal to 0? And that's the sign I have to pick. I have to pick negative. Is this product ever negative? I have to choose those corresponding x values that make the product negative. So this is the answer. Not this. If I pick here or pick here, the product will not be negative. So the answer is x in the interval Now I have to check if I choose 7 or not, because there is equal symbol. Yes, I will choose negative 7. Union. Exactly, because this is undefined, so it cannot be included. Awesome. That is pretty much it for this test. So let's just summarize quickly. A quadratic function in which we determine the maximum minimum, right? Finding the inverse of a function. Maybe a question like this in finding a value. The distance formula, the midpoint formula. The circle, the equation of a circle. Long division or synthetic division, one question. Graphing either a polynomial or a rational, not both. There is no need to really graph both. In an hour and 15 minutes, one of them is good enough, one or the other. Reading some information from the graph and identifying the type of polynomial, the type of rational function and its horizontal asymptote. Solving a polynomial or rational inequality. Finding a function composition, domain, decomposing a function. There are a lot of topics. If you think about it, it's a lot, right? It's a lot of topics. We have a long list of topics. But if you review with 5 or 6 problems from each type, you should have no difficulties on this test. We still have 5 minutes, so I would like you to tell me, I would like to see another problem like this, or maybe graphing a rational function, or maybe just anything. Anything you can think of that you would like to go back to. Something like what was not here was graphing a rational function. I'm not going to ask you to graph something like this. No. Ryan, you said something? So if you remember, I said you are going to have to graph either a polynomial or a rational. So would you like to choose a rational function to graph, or would you like to go back to something else? On Monday, if you need extra time, as you know, I have office hours after your class, so you don't have to rush. So if you need extra time, I'll be more than happy to give you extra time. So would you like to graph a type 1 or type 2? I will not ask you to graph a type 3, as I promised. That is the only problem that is not on this worksheet. Would you like to graph one of those? Type 2? Very good. Let's graph a type 2. Good. Any do you want to make one up, or you want me to make one up? Do you want to choose one? Brian, I'll see you on Saturday. Okay, do you want to choose one up? Choose one, or you want me? Okay, very good. So let's say f of x equals x divided by x squared minus 4. What will I do immediately? Very good. Of course, this is so important because the domain depends on it, the asymptotes depend on it, everything moving forward. Okay, perfect. So, domain, please. Except what is x equals -2? And what is x equals 2 for this function for sure? Say it again. Vertical asymptote and vertical asymptote. Good. So then once we say that, what happens left and right? Definitely. Yes. What we don't know is the sign. So negative 2.1, negative 1.9, 1.9, 2.1. We're going to plug this in and determine that. So what about the horizontal asymptote of this function? What is the horizontal asymptote for any type 2 function? Always, forever. 0. So let's plug in negative 2.1. So this is negative, this is negative, this is negative with negative 2.1. So it's negative. With negative 1.9, negative, positive, but negative. I just replace x by negative 1.9. So this will be positive. On this side with 1.9, positive, positive, but negative. And with 2.1 is all positive. And this is 0. That's it. We're ready to graph. The function is symmetric. But I don't want to hold you over. It's 3:15. I just want to graph it. When we graph a function with asymptotes, what do we graph first? Always. The asymptotes. Always. So 0, you don't have to reinforce it. So now I look at my table, and this is what I read. From 0 down to negative infinity. From 0 down to negative infinity on the left-hand side of the first vertical asymptote. 0, 0. From positive it goes to negative. And from positive infinity to 0. So this is f of x equals x over x squared minus 4.